Hi there and welcome back for our next video in our playlist called Very Important Terms for AP US History. Today we're going to be tackling the Civil War. Now, obviously, in a playlist that is trying to keep each video at 2 to 5 minutes, we are not going to cover everything that needs to be said about the Civil War. However, I'm going to try to hit a few of the key and important details that you need to remember for AP US history. So here's your basic definition. The Four-Year War between 1861 and 1865 fought between the United States, the Union, and the 11 states that seceded the Confederacy. So some historical context here, thinking back about what started the Civil War. So there's sectional tensions, primarily over slavery and states' rights, and there will be a few compromises, such as the Compromise of 1850 and the Kansas-Nebraska Act, that try to solve these issues. However, tensions only continue to increase. The election of 1860 is really the catalyst for the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln was elected on this idea that slavery could not expand west. And not a single Southern state had voted for him. And so this led to the secession of 11 states, who then formed the Confederate States of America. So opposing sides, there's some basic information that you should be aware of, thinking about the advantages and disadvantages of each side. So the Union will have the advantage with a much larger population. Not only are they going to be able to supply more soldiers, but they will also have more people to work in the factories to produce materials necessary in a war effort. They will have more support at home, taking care of family farms when the soldiers have gone off to war, a variety of things that really depend on a high population. A stronger Navy is going to be the Union advantage. However, the Confederacy will typically have stronger military generals. Industry is going to be in favor of the Union. Their ability to transport people and materials is going to be a huge benefit during the war. And that connects to the railroads. All those goods that they're producing, they can get to the battlefields much quicker. So next up is a little bit about military engagements. So we are not going to be able to go in depth on all of these. However, you can check out my video on the military conflict if you would like some more details. But as you can see, there were significant amounts of military engagements, primarily in the southern and the eastern part of the United States. So you should be familiar with the goals and strategies. In the North, especially the early years of the war, their goal is going to be called the Anaconda Plan, which is going to be a three-part strategy of blockading the ports, the southern ports that they're unable to trade, controlling the Mississippi River, which will split the Confederacy in half, and to capture the Confederate capital at Richmond, Virginia. The Southern strategy is a defensive war, and their primary objective is to gain European allies because of what we call cotton diplomacy. They believed that since they had a good trading relationship with Europe, that especially with the cotton trade, that then they would ally with them. Couple turning points. The Battle of Antietam is important because it leads to Lincoln issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, which frees slaves in the states that are in rebellion. And it also allows for African Americans to then join the Union Army. The siege of Vicksburg is really essential because that did complete the part of the Anaconda Plan of splitting the Confederacy in two, controlling the Mississippi River. The Battle of Gettysburg is another important battle to be aware of. Lincoln issues the Gettysburg Address, which re-inspires the North to continue in the effort to fight the war. And additionally, it's the last time that Lee goes on the offensive in the North. And then one of the final things you should be aware of is Sherman's March to the Sea. This was a total war destructive march through the South, really obliterating Southern morale. You should also be familiar with some Homefront Opposition. So the North primarily dealt with Copperheads. This is a group of peace Democrats, people who wanted to just declare peace and allow the South to secede. Lincoln got a lot of criticism for his suspension of habeas corpus, which allowed him to imprison people without a trial, without having the rights of the body. That's what habeas corpus means. And then there were draft riots. This is going to be the first draft in American history, and people rioted against that. Southern Homefront Opposition, there's going to be significant subversion by enslaved people. They are going to reduce the effectiveness of the war, the ability to maintain the war effort in the South. There's resistance to a strong central government and the taxes in the South. Obviously, they care about states' rights, but you need to have money to run the war effort. So there was a conflict there. And then Southern Unionists are going to be a group of people who subvert the Southern war effort because they do not want to secede. So a lot of home front opposition on both sides. So finally, what is the significance of the Civil War? Well, the preservation of the United States as one nation is significant, and then it ended the institution of slavery. So those are probably the two biggest components you need to be aware of. However, there was significant costs of the war, both in human and physical capital. And then after the war, there was very quickly the assassination of Lincoln and the development of Reconstruction. Another thing to consider for the significance of the Civil War, it's been said that prior to the Civil War, people were said, the United States are. But after the Civil War, people began to say the United States is. And so that really demonstrates the difference between thinking about yourself primarily as from your state or thinking of yourself primarily as an American. So I hope that this I hope this video was helpful for you. And if so, please like and subscribe.